All right, let's hop into chapter 9. It's going to be about George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, the forming of political parties, a whole bunch of fun things. Before we do that, I want to remind you that federalism is the idea of distributing power between the parents, or the central government, the federal government, and the kids, the state government. This idea of distribution of powers is going to be one of the things people disagree about, and one of the differences between the first two political parties that form. So what I want you to do, just so we're getting our head wrapped around this, I know everybody's rolling their eyes, but I need everybody to stand up, okay? Okay, and what I want you to do is to think about it this way. It really depends, I'll go up here a little bit. It really depends on how you read the Constitution. So if somebody has a very strict interpretation of the Constitution, we're going to go to this side of the debate. So everybody do strict, okay? You can only do what's written in there, word for word, all right? Everybody wag their finger, okay? By doing that, that really limits the power of the government because you can only do what's exactly said in there. So their power is much smaller. So go ahead and shrink down, okay? So strict interpretation means less power, okay? Smaller government. Go to the other side of the spectrum. There are some people that say that we should have a loose, let me see it. Henry, I know you're doing this with me. A loose interpretation of the government, meaning they can do whatever's necessary and proper. So it might not say it right in there, but it's what they have to do their job. Now, if we were at school, I would make you stand up on a chair, right? And say that would be big government, lots of power, because we have a loose interpretation. So let's do that again. This side, strict interpretation, less power. Okay. Loose interpretation, do what you got to do. Government has more power, big government, okay? So depending on where you sided in that debate, that would be kind of what political party you would side with. And we'll continue to watch that debate play out, okay? Before we do that, I had you looking at the map. If you would rewind to page 243, I am going to quickly read that to you. Follow along as I read on page 243. You see a beautiful picture of Abigail Adams there. Abigail Adams is thoughtful and smart. Like other women of her day, she does not lead a public life. Yet to her husband, patriot and now President John Adams, she is a trusted advisor. During her husband's presidency, she watches with a keen eye as the first political parties form. She helps her husband identify his true friends and his secret enemies. Her involvement in politics shocks some. For some time, even it cost her a dear friendship with Thomas Jefferson. So John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were on opposite ends of the spectrum of that power debate of how to read the Constitution. The division of the nation into different political parties was a trying time for the United States. It was one of the challenges facing this young nation in the Federalist era. If you look at the top, the title of the unit is the Federalist era, 1789 to 1800. Go ahead and turn the page. So that kind of gives us the political landscape of the time period. Here is the physical landscape of the time period. Take a look at that map with your finger. Point to the legend. The pink is all of the states, the original 13 colonies. And of course, you're going to answer a few questions about this in a little bit, but you see some differences in states compared to today. The orange, go ahead and point to all the orange. The Northwest Territory, that is where we handed out land in our land auction simulation. The green is other countries that still own land on that part of the continent. And then the purple is where we're fighting, disputed areas. So our border to the south with Spain, our border to the north with Canada. And if you look in the center, the Ohio River Valley, there is purple there on that river between Virginia and the Northwest Territory. They'll fight over that area for some time. So in a little bit, I'm going to have you answer a few questions on the map. Before I do that, though, could you head on down to the timeline? If you see, take your finger, point to 1789. Washington is going to become the first president, and the Judiciary Act passes, and we'll talk about that act later. Move on, point to 1791. The Bill of Rights is added, so everybody's happy. That's what allowed some people to sign the Constitution. Move on. 1795, nation's first Chief Justice is John Jay, and he retires. Our current justice, remember from last unit, is John Roberts. Then 1798, the Alien Sedition Acts pass. That is, and the XYZ affair, those are things too that divide the nation on how much power the federal government should have and how they should be involved in foreign affairs. So we'll watch that, and that will kind of divide people into the two groups. And then finally in 1800, Congress meets in the Capitol for the first time, and the Library of Congress is founded. So you're going to answer a few questions on that timeline, and you see a lot of firsts. So what I want you to do here in a little bit, we'll stop the video, and I would like you to go to Classroom and click on Chapter 9, Time and Place Activity. And go ahead and get started on that. If you could, please use a different colored font, either bold or colored, to answer the questions here based on the map. You're going to do a little research on your own, use authoritative sources, and then you're going to answer a few questions on the timeline. And since we just read about Abigail Adams, I'm going to have you read a short article about our current First Lady, and it says to make a bulleted list of 5 important facts from that little brief biography of our current First Lady. So that's what you're going to do for your assignment, your independent work time. So do your best, think well, write well, and submit, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Thanks, 8th graders.